Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going here?
All troops form up.
I'm bringing to you a very strange video, but mostly it's also because, just another, just, I wanted to talk about this, and realistically, it's also great that I get more content out, but I hope you guys enjoy this video regardless. So what I want to talk to you guys about is the Sunward Phalanx. I see a lot of people having very, how to say, reactionary responses. And this has to do with the fact that the Sunward Phalanx is weak. There is no doubt about it, in my mind, that the Sunward Phalanx is weak. Now, there are several reasons for this, and it can be very easily demonstrated why they're weak. But it's also good to note that they still have uses because of their range and because of how they're structured. First of all, it's a long pike unit. It has a reach that most melee units probably will never compare to. Only Fortebraccios would even remotely compare to these guys. Now, that's important because it keeps you out of danger, and it also allows you to maximize your damage. There are 40 of these guys. There are 40 of them, and they're all dealing damage. So if you have 40 units attacking maybe 1, 2, or 3 units, they're going to die really fast. The problem here is, first of all, everyone's saying that they're very squishy. There is a lot of damage out from too many things. We're talking units that deal 3,000 damage to 3 people. We're talking about 6,000 damage to 6 people, and like that's enough damage to instantly kill any regular unit in a single attack. Multiple units could be dying in a single attack. This doesn't help with Sunward Phalanx because of the sheer number of these attacks that are dishing out. They do have a special shield mechanic where every 30 seconds, well, yeah, if they have the blue shield, they'll block a single instance of damage, and great. It stops a single instant of damage. That could be as weak as 1, like 1 damage. It could be as strong as 10 million. Like, these guys could survive a bombard. It's simply not frequent enough to be important, but it can come in very clutch when you're starting off a fight. A lot of people love to start off a fight with big abilities, and if your unit can absorb that and just keep on trucking, it's going to be good. It's going to be in your favor, because they use a big ability for no effect. Muskets will definitely rip right through you. A small amount of bleed damage does apparently soak up this. I honestly think that like this blue shield mechanic is cool, but there should be ways to kind of use it more efficiently, or kind of optimize it so that there's not so many weaknesses. Again, muskets, one liquid fire bomb followed up by a black powder bomb will half health this unit very easily, very easily half health this unit. Throw a caltrops, throw a liquid fire bomb, throw a black powder bomb. That unit is so low that a sneeze would kill it. Now the next part is quite important, is the damage. I'm bottom line right now, I'm not fully maxed, but I want to demonstrate to you the damage here, the difference between the Sunward Phalanx and the Fortebraccio. Now it's very important to compare them to the Fortebraccio because the Fortebraccio recently got buffed as well. Now as you can see, around 160, and their perk damage probably 1,000, 1,100. They don't swivel towards the enemy. But you can
Attack at will.
put them on attack mode, and they will swivel towards the enemy. This is also important because hitting attack mode doesn't make them move anywhere.
Attack.
So they'll always stay stationary. So you have to also remember that. That's kind of one of the things that makes this unit very nuanced. That you have to kind of keep in mind of these interactions.
Falling.
If you want them to attack in free attack mode, you have to move them out of brace or do long attack.
Hold
So
steady.
you can brace sometimes if you want them to attack,
Attack.
long range. Now, I want you to also note that they deal more damage outside of brace.
Attack at will.
Now, as you can see, long attack does kind of bug them out because they're trying to move forward instead of moving backwards. A lot of the things that makes this really irritating is because of the differences of AI. Long attack mode is not very good. It forces them trying to move forward when they want to move backwards.
Form up.
Another good point is against ranged units, and I love how ranged units actually popped up here. They have a, how to say, a weird block.
Form shield wall.
They do not block in a way that is complete. You see, their right side has normal block. Their left side, completely exposed.
All troops.
I can switch this slightly towards this side, and they'll start taking way more damage. They'll get hit way more. I can switch this slightly to the right side,
Hold position.
and they'll take a lot less damage. This is annoying, mostly because
Attack.
people want them to be shield units, but they're not. Stop trying to treat them as shield units, because they simply are not shield units. They can work as shields, but they're not great. You're not going to survive heavy gunfire. You're going to barely be able to approach heavy gunfire. And again, you're very squishy. Oh, and last thing,
Stand to.
their rotation much faster.
All troops.
Oh
form
man,
up. Falling.
the best example is if I could get a melee unit.
Now. Attack.
Let's see if I can get a melee unit next.
All troops form up.
Now another range unit, come on. Their turn rate is much faster than the Fortebraccio's. So that is a big plus. Fortebraccios also attack,
All troops form up.
how to say, sorry.
Falling.
While in brace, they try to attack.
Attack.
Yeah, the dead zone does really mess them up, so you gotta be careful about that.
All troops form up.
Come on,
Stand to.
give it to me.
Ακολουθούμε τις εντολές σου.
Now.
There we go.
Form up.
Now, I want to make this very clear.
Falling.
I'm not sure on the exact turn rate speed, but it's at least faster than Fortebraccio's.
Attack.
As you can see, that was very fast. Took them about a second to spin around. And as you can see, doing very little damage still.
Attack.
I can't get them out of brace.
Attack.
I'll need
at
to
will.
thing.
Attack.
But again,
Stand
you want to
to.
use roaming brace anyway. Just push forward. Stab, stab, stab. Obviously, that's a doctrine. That's not a very default.
Attack!
So, why do I bring up Fortebraccios? Fortebraccios
Sembra Davide
are the best
contro
unit to
Golia.
compare them to. Because even though they're not in the meta, they're quite
Your unit is
strong.
retreating.
Quickly now!
They're not
Per
useless,
arricchirmi, do
but
anche la
they're
vita, anche la vita. Quickly now!
not
Qui
used.
la pistola, qui la pistola, lì il denaro.
Now, first of all, is the damage. You would think that that 1,000 damage, is very low. It is. That is some of the lowest damage that you'll regularly see. The brace damage on, how to say, the Fortebraccios are at least 80% as much.
Ready? Per arricchirmi, do anche la vita.
But the block break is lower, which is very
Ready,
interesting.
fight!
If you probably noticed.
Sembriamo un tritacarne.
But as you can see, they probably hit for about 17, 1800 damage. I'm not sure if it's block breaking that much damage, but that's basically the amount of damage you should be seeing. Now, if I can get a pike unit, oh, there we go. Excellent. Good old pike unit. Best. Now, you guys probably don't even realize this as well, but Fortebraccios causes knockback on hit.
Do anche la vita.
And as you can see, a little bit of running into these guys, they do 2,000 damage. The amount of damage being outputted by the Sunward Phalanx is low. Like, incredibly low. Even in comparison to one of their best competitors, is the Fortebraccios. That's insanely low. Now, the final part of this is the turn rate. I think this is, well, it doesn't matter what unit I use, but like, what unit I'm facing up against. But Fortebraccio's turn rate, at least half as much as the Sunward Phalanx. So Sunward Phalanx is slightly more usable than Fortebraccio's, but it's definitely not a straight upgrade. And I want to kind of express this as kind of a point of how badly the game is balanced. The game is so badly balanced that, like, people don't know whether or not this unit is strong or whether or not this unit is... It is weak, don't get me wrong. So I totally believe that, like, people are completely justified when they say, as you can see, like, take about half a second more with the turn rate. The Sunward Phalanx is, feels at least twice as fast. But Fortebraccios hit way harder, and I don't actually have any damage doctrine on them. Now, there is a point that I want to make about this discussion. People feel like
Your unit is
if they
retreating.
purchase a unit, it has to be strong. I want to also clear the air about that. No, you do not deserve to dictate how something is balanced in a game just because you paid for it. The developers choose how to balance the game. And of course, that can be very important with how you spend your money. I don't doubt that the developers have to kind of keep in mind that strong units gets the money. I also want to kind of note that I dislike imbalanced unit for the sake of, like, just because. There should be no reason to have a unbalanced unit. There are ways to balance units having strong aspects, even these long pikes. Now, I want these guys to be buffed. Not because that they're not OP, but because they're not balanced. And that is to the current meta. People will say they're kind of balanced, but they're kind of weak. They're weak. They're not balanced at all. Because the state you want to be in order to compete with the current meta, is dealing way more damage than they currently are. Fortebraccios are not meta, or not even viable in the meta, without heavy support. These guys are not going to be viable at all without heavy support. They don't deal any damage. Their stab ability barely gets them up onto the level. And again, the shields, the tankiness, not even on the radar. They'll fall like dominoes. They have better formations, don't get me wrong. I love this base down formation. It still has a block formation, and it has a circle formation. Really great against cavalry. The unit is cool and thematic, but it's just not very strong. And it won't be until it's buffed. I do want this unit buffed, but I don't want it to be completely so... I don't want to be buffed just because people who paid said that it should be buffed. People need to know when to nerf units, when to nerf units, when to buff units. I know I make this discussion and repeating a lot of points, but I can't stress this enough that even though this unit is weak, don't go crazy. It's not so weak that it's useless. It's not so so weak that it's useless, and it can work because of how the unit is designed and structured. You get a good support team, you stay at the back, you deal the damage, you're more of a threat to cavalry than anything, and that's because you have so much things loaded into anti-cavalry. Obviously, you have slightly better block break, which is a big plus, because Fortebraccios have garbage for block break. So, so those are just the differences. How I would like for them to balance this unit, give them back the knockback on hit. But as you saw with even the Fortebraccios, it was not even a knockback on the brace. It was knockback on their basic attacks. Put knockback on their basic attacks. You could add the days. It could be cool if you want days on hit, but I mean, the Sun on Brace doctrine, fine. You can stack them both. I don't really consider doctrines when balancing units. But how I would like this unit to be brought back in, double the damage that Brace is dealing. I know that's a bit extreme, but you're kind of trying to make these guys compete against Fortebraccios, who right now deal way more damage than you. As a threat, Fortebraccios are more of a threat. Easier to kill are Fortebraccios. These guys are slightly harder to kill because they can absorb big hits. They're just as easy. They will probably die just as fast, though. They're slightly more difficult to kill, though, somehow. Arguably, Fortebraccios could be more difficult to kill, depending on scenario as well. So, those are just the two things. I think this unit could be fine if you just buff those two things. Give them back the knockback on basic attack, and give them more damage and brace. It doesn't have to be 100%. 60 or 50 could be adequate to get them in a spot where they don't need to rely so heavily on their team. Because at this point, they're basically a melee range unit. That's what they are. They're a melee range unit that requires other people to tank, other people to, well, just that's it. It requires other people to tank. You only get value out of these guys if you're if you're touching the enemy with your pikes. And you kind of have to dance that ranged lines, but you're just not threatening enough against the current meta. Against the current things, like Iron Reapers will will roll you like bowling pins. It's not even a joke how easily it is for Iron Reapers just to walk up into the phalanx. Obviously, if you charge into the phalanx, you're going to take massive amounts of damage. Several times I've kind of like charged straight into a phalanx, and I've lost like 8 Iron Reapers at once charging into a phalanx. Painful, but not impossible to get on top. The 10 just killed the rest of them really easily. That being said, give these guys more damage. I have no reason to think that, for balance reasons, that giving them more damage will make them go out of control. They're very easy to kill. They have a weak performance currently, and they're still very much weak to flanks and things. The only other thing I would change is lowering the turn rate when you put them in V mode. That's it. Honestly, put that to Fortebraccio level. Fortebraccios would, like, put it to Fortebraccio levels, it will be fine. This speed? Much too fast. Much too fast. Fortebraccio level? Good. I think cutting it down to Fortebraccio level would be good. Even less than Fortebraccio. If you want to buff the tankiness of this unit, sure. But bring it down to Fortebraccio level. Not very many people would even use the V mode unless they're just standing still, because controlling the direction these guys face is kind of important on the battlefield, I realize. It's not easy to keep enemies away from you, but once if they have knockback on hit, it should be very easy to do that. Stun on Brace is just not strong enough in order to keep enemies at bay. It's really good at trapping enemies, but that's only if they care about Stun on Brace. There's very much a lot of shield units that will constantly just pressure straight into you. There's a lot of abilities that have Daze Protection. Basically all sword charges, like buckler, like all shield rushes and charges basically have Daze immunity on them. So I don't particularly mind if people have other suggestions for how they want to balance this unit. I do think that, like, there's probably thousands of different ways you could change or balance this unit to kind of in different aspects or whatnot. Its lack of damage and the kind of utility of it is just really low. Adding the CC might seem crazy to some people, but add it to the basic attack instead of the brace attacks, because if you add it to all brace attacks, they will stun everyone like crazy. Though I must say as well, I kind of wish that when you use roaming brace, that they would sometimes do basic attacks as they're moving forward, like even at a reduced rate. Like, even at a reduced rate, that would be excellent. But I can understand why roaming brace is not as strong as it, like, should be or could be, but I still think it would be cool to have roaming brace have the knockback on hit, just because it would feel like it creates space, it's trying to pressure the enemy, and again, I don't care about it coppering over the Imperial Pike Guard advance. Again, have multiple units do the same thing. You have a million different charges, all doing the same thing, and we all bet on which ones does it the best. But we all find the differences, and we'll all make use of it. Anyway,
Μείνετε σε
I
επαγρύπνηση.
thought this was going to be a very short discussion, but I seem to have repeated myself quite a few times. So I hope you guys take a deeper look at units instead of just kind of reactionary
Οι θεοί παρακολουθούν την
responses and be
Η δύναμη
like,
τους
this
είναι
unit's
βασιλιά.
trash, this unit thing, blah 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 blah. It's got some good things to it. It's not great. It's definitely got over nerfed, to say the very least.
Με θάρρος και
Um,
στρατηγική,
I
αφήστε
think
τον εχθρό να
the
νιώσει
developers
τη δύναμη
were.
της Μακεδονίας.
I think the suggestions on the PTR was just very overreactionary. I think even my reaction was very over the top. The knockback on
Οι
hit just
θεοί
made it seem
παρακολουθούν
much
τη
more
μάχη
stronger
μας. Η
than
δύναμη τους
it
είναι
more
βασιλιές.
the knockback just was very strong because of the trigger rate, and it was just completely oppressive. Anything that didn't have CC immunity or just had a blocking state the entire time would just get
Μείνετε σε επαγρύπνηση.
punted straight out of the unit. So yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, but other than that, my name's Satsuki. Have a nice day. Bye for now.